The cold metal floor bit into Kang Tae-hyun's knees as the guards shoved him forward. 3 months. He had been a prisoner on this alien ship for 3 months, and he still could not get used to the smell. Everything here smelled like copper and flowers mixed together. It made his stomach turn. The throne room was massive. Pillars of black stone rose toward a ceiling so high that it disappeared into darkness. Thousands of Valorans filled the space, their tall bodies wrapped in silk robes of purple and gold. They all had the same features: silver hair that flowed like water, eyes that glowed pale blue, skin so white it seemed to shine from within, and they all looked at him like he was an insect. Tae-hyun kept his head down. He had learned quickly that looking a Valoran in the eye was considered a challenge. The bruises on his ribs reminded him of that lesson every time he breathed. The guards forced him to walk down a long path of red carpet. On both sides, Valorans whispered to each other. He caught pieces of their words: primitive, weak, ugly, short-lived. The translating chip they had forced into his neck made sure he understood every insult. At the end of the path sat a throne made of something that looked like frozen lightning. On that throne sat Queen Sora. She was beautiful in the way a blade is beautiful: sharp, dangerous. Her silver hair was piled high on her head, held in place by pins that looked like tiny swords. Her blue eyes studied Tae-hyun, the way a scientist might study a specimen under glass. Beside her stood a younger woman, Princess Yuna. Tae-hyun had heard stories about her. The Ice Princess, they called her. The one who had not smiled in 50 years. She looked perhaps 25 by human standards, but Valorans lived for centuries. She could be older than his grandmother. The guards threw Tae-hyun to the ground before the throne. His hands slapped against the cold stone. Pain shot through his wrists. "Rise, human," the queen said. Her voice was soft, but it filled every corner of the massive room. "Look at me." Tae-hyun hesitated. Was this a trick? Would they beat him again for obeying? He decided to take the risk. Slowly he pushed himself up and raised his eyes to meet the queen's gaze. She smiled. It was not a warm smile. "You are Kang Tae-hyun," she said, "an engineer from the planet called Earth. You were captured during our harvesting mission 3 months ago. You have tried to escape 17 times. You have injured 4 of my guards. You have refused to break, no matter what we did to you." Tae-hyun said nothing. He did not know if he was supposed to speak. The queen leaned forward on her throne. "I have watched you, human. I have watched all of your kind since we brought you aboard. Most of them cried. Most of them begged. Most of them gave up hope within the first week." She paused. "But not you." "I am stubborn," Tae-hyun said. His voice was rough from lack of use. "My mother always said it would get me in trouble." A ripple of shock went through the crowd. A human speaking without permission was unheard of. The guards moved toward him, but the queen raised one hand. They stopped. "Stubborn," the queen repeated. "Yes, I believe that is the correct word." She stood from her throne. Her robes flowed around her like liquid silver as she walked down the steps toward him. "Tell me, stubborn human, do you know why you are here?" Tae-hyun's heart pounded in his chest. "To die, I assume." "No." The queen stopped directly in front of him. She was tall, so tall that he had to crane his neck to look at her face. "You are here to live. You are here to become something greater than you ever imagined." She turned to face the crowd. Her voice rang out like a bell. "For 10,000 years, our bloodline has grown weak. Our children are born sick. Our people grow fewer with each generation. The doctors have no cure. The priests have no answers. But the ancient texts speak of a prophecy." She paused. "The blood of the forgotten world will restore what was lost. The children of exile will return to save the empire." Tae-hyun did not understand. What did any of this have to do with him? The queen turned back to face him. Her blue eyes burned with an intensity that made him want to step backward. "Prepare yourself, human," she said. "You will become my daughter's spouse." The words hit him like a physical blow. For a moment, he forgot how to breathe. The crowd erupted into chaos. Valorans shouted in anger and disbelief. Some laughed at what they thought was a joke. Others looked at the queen as if she had lost her mind. Princess Yuna stood frozen on the steps. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands had curled into fists at her sides. This is madness. A male Valoran pushed through the crowd. He was tall even by their standards, with sharp features and cruel eyes. You would give the princess to this animal, this creature that lives for less than 100 years? Silence, Day One, the queen said. Her voice cut through the noise like a knife. The crowd went quiet instantly. I did not ask for your opinion. The male Valoran, Daewon, clenched his jaw. Tai Hyun could see the hatred burning in his eyes. This was someone who would cause problems. He filed that information away for later. The prophecy is clear, the queen continued. Human blood carries markers that match the original Valoran genetics, markers that were thought lost forever. This human will complete the 5 trials. If he survives, he will wed my daughter. Their children will carry the pure bloodline. Our people will be saved. Taehyun finally found his voice. And if I refuse? The queen smiled again. That same cold, dangerous smile. Then the other 43 humans we captured will be executed. Slowly. One each day, while you watch. The blood drained from Taehyun's face. 43 people. Men and women he had come to know during his captivity. Jisoo, the biologist who had kept everyone calm. Old man Chul, who had told stories to help them sleep. Young Mina, who was only 19 years old. He could not let them die. Not for his pride, not for his freedom. What are these trials, he asked. The queen's smile widened. You will learn soon enough. For now you will be taken to proper quarters. You will be cleaned and dressed appropriately. The first trial begins in 3 days. She waved her hand and the guards grabbed Taehyun's arms. As they dragged him away, he looked back at the throne. Princess Yuna still stood there, watching him with those cold silver eyes. For just a moment, he thought he saw something flicker in her gaze. Curiosity, perhaps. Or maybe it was pity. Either way, Taehyun knew one thing for certain. His life would never be the same again. The transport ship dropped Taehyun at the edge of the obsidian wastes, just as the twin suns began to rise. He stood alone on a ridge of black rock and watched the ship fly away. It grew smaller and smaller until it was just a dot in the purple sky. Then it was gone. He looked at what they had given him. 1 small knife, 1 empty water container, 1 thin blanket. That was all. They expected him to survive 7 days in this place with nothing but these 3 things. The obsidian wastes stretched out before him in every direction. Black sand dunes rose and fell like frozen waves. Sharp rocks jutted from the ground like broken teeth. In the distance, strange plants with red leaves grew in twisted clusters. The air was hot and dry. It burned his throat when he breathed. A small drone floated nearby. It was there to record his death, he knew. The entire empire would be watching. They wanted to see the weak human fail. They wanted to laugh at his suffering. Taehyun smiled at the drone. Hope you brought enough battery, he said. This is going to take a while. He started walking. The first day was the hardest. The heat was brutal. Sweat poured from his body, and he had no water to replace it. The black sand absorbed the sunlight and radiated it back like a furnace. His shoes began to fall apart by noon. But Taehyun did not stop. He kept moving forward, always forward. He looked for shade. He looked for water. He looked for anything he could use. By evening, he found a small cave in the side of a rock formation. It was cool inside. He used his knife to cut strips from his blanket and wrap them around his feet. Then he explored the cave. At the back, he found moisture on the walls, tiny drops of water that collected in the cracks. He used a piece of his blanket to soak up the water, then squeezed it into his container. It took hours, but by morning, he had enough water to survive another day. The Valorans watching the feeds could not believe it. A human should have died from dehydration by now. A human should have collapsed under the heat. But this one kept going. On the second day, Taehyun found the red plants. He did not eat them right away. He was an engineer, not a biologist, but he remembered basic survival training from his military service years ago. He watched the small creatures that lived in the waste, lizard-like things with 6 legs. Some of them ate the red plants. He waited to see if they got sick. They did not. On the third day, he ate the plants. They tasted like bitter medicine, but they had juice inside them. His body grew stronger. The Valorans began to talk. How was this possible? Humans were supposed to be weak. Humans were supposed to be fragile. This one should have been dead 3 times over by now. Elder Nari, the ancient advisor to the queen, watched the feeds with great interest. She said nothing, but a small smile played at the corners of her mouth. She knew things. She knew secrets that no one else remembered. On the 4th day, a sandstorm hit the obsidian wastes. Winds of 300 miles per hour tore across the dunes. The storm could strip flesh from bone in seconds. The Valorans finally relaxed. Now the human would die. Not even their own warriors could survive such a storm without proper equipment. But Tae-hyun had been watching the sky. He had seen the strange clouds forming on the horizon. He had felt the change in the air pressure. By the time the storm arrived, he was deep inside his cave, hidden behind a wall of rocks he had built. The storm raged for 18 hours. Tae-hyun sat in the darkness and waited. He thought about his mother back on Earth. He thought about his younger sister, who was probably wondering if he was dead. He thought about the 43 humans whose lives depended on him surviving this trial. He would not fail them. He could not. When the storm passed, he crawled out of his cave and kept walking. On the 5th day, he encountered predators, large creatures that looked like wolves mixed with scorpions. They had black fur and tails that ended in sharp stingers. 3 of them surrounded him on a rocky plateau. Tae-hyun did not run. Running would trigger their hunting instinct. Instead, he stood his ground. He made himself look as big as possible. He shouted and threw rocks. The creatures were confused. Their prey usually ran. Their prey usually screamed in fear. This small, strange creature was doing neither. It was challenging them. One of them charged. Tae-hyun waited until the last moment, then stepped aside. His knife found the creature's eye. It howled in pain and stumbled away. The other 2 watched their wounded companion, then looked back at Tae-hyun. He stared at them and did not blink. They left. They decided this prey was not worth the trouble. Princess Yuna watched the encounter from her private chambers. She had been watching the feeds for days now, though she told no one. This human fascinated her in ways she did not understand. He should be dead. Every calculation, every prediction said he should be dead. But he refused to die. He adapted. He learned. He survived through pure stubbornness and willpower. She found herself leaning forward whenever danger approached him. She found herself holding her breath when he faced the predators. When he drove them away with nothing but a small knife and raw courage, she let out a long, slow exhale. What was this feeling? She did not know. She had never felt it before. On the 6th day, Tae-hyun's body began to fail. The lack of proper food and water was catching up with him. His muscles ached. His vision blurred. Every step felt like walking through mud. But he did not stop. He could not stop. Not now. Not when he was so close. He talked to himself to stay awake. He recited old songs his grandmother used to sing. He counted his steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1,000, 10,000. He lost count and started over. On the 7th day, Kang Tae-hyun walked out of the obsidian wastes. He was burned by the sun. He was thin and weak from hunger. His clothes were torn to rags. His feet were bloody and wrapped in dirty strips of blanket. But he was alive. A crowd had gathered at the extraction point. Hundreds of Valorans had come to see the human's body collected. Instead, they watched in stunned silence as he walked toward them on his own 2 feet. Tae-hyun stopped in front of the guards who had brought him here 7 days ago. He looked up at them with red, exhausted eyes. "So," he said, his voice barely a whisper, "what is the second trial?" Then he collapsed. He woke up 3 days later in a medical bay. His wounds had been treated. His body had been fed through tubes. A Valoran doctor stood over him, looking at him with something that might have been respect. "The queen wishes to see you," the doctor said. "When you are ready." Tae-hyun laughed. It hurt, but he laughed anyway. "Tell her I will be there in an hour," he said. "I just need to find some pants first." The doctor stared at him for a long moment. Then, for the first time in Tae-hyun's memory, a Valoran laughed at a human's joke. Something was changing. Slowly, very slowly, something was changing. No. The door to Tae-hyun's quarters opened without warning. He looked up from the book he was reading, a history of the Valoran Empire that had been left for him to study. Princess Yuna stood in the doorway. She wore simple clothes tonight, a white robe that made her silver hair seem even brighter. No jewelry, no crown. She looked almost normal, almost approachable. You should knock, Taehyun said. It is polite. Yuna stepped inside and closed the door behind her. I am a princess. I do not knock. Everyone should knock. It shows respect for other people. Yuna tilted her head slightly. You speak to me as if we are equals. No one does that. Not even my mother. Maybe that is the problem, Taehyun said. He closed his book and set it aside. When everyone treats you like you are above them, you start to believe it. Then you forget how to connect with anyone. Yuna stood very still for a long moment. Then she crossed the room and sat in the chair across from him. Her movements were graceful and controlled, like a dancer who never stopped performing. I came to study you, she said, to understand what kind of creature I am supposed to marry. I am not a creature. I am a person. That is what I am trying to determine. Taehyun laughed softly. Fair enough. Ask me anything. And so she did. Night after night, Yuna came to his quarters. At first, her questions were cold and clinical. She wanted to know about human biology, human society, human history. She treated him like a subject to be researched. But slowly, her questions changed. What is it like to know you will die? She asked one night. Your kind lives for such a short time. Does it not terrify you? Taehyun thought about this for a long moment. Sometimes, he admitted, but mostly it makes me want to live fully. Every moment matters because I have so few of them. Every person matters because I might not see them again. Yuna looked confused. We live for centuries. We have so much time. Yet we waste it on politics and tradition and rules that mean nothing. Then maybe you are the ones who do not understand life, Taehyun said gently. Living a long time is not the same as living well. Something flickered in Yuna's eyes. She looked away quickly, but not before Taehyun saw it. Pain, loneliness, a desperate hunger for something she could not name. Tell me about Earth, she said, changing the subject. Tell me about your home. So he told her. He told her about oceans so vast they seemed endless. About mountains that touched the clouds. About forests filled with a million different kinds of life. He told her about rain, about snow, about sunsets that painted the sky in colors she had never seen. He told her about his family, his mother who worked 2 jobs to raise him and his sister alone, his grandmother who told stories and made the best soup in the world, his sister who was studying to be a doctor when he was taken. You miss them, Yuna said. It was not a question. Every day. I do not understand. In our culture, family is about duty, about obligation. We do not miss people. Taehyun looked at her with sad eyes. Then I feel sorry for you. For once, Yuna did not argue. She just sat there thinking about his words. Meanwhile, Taehyun was not idle during the days. He had convinced the guards to let him visit the other human prisoners. They were kept in better conditions now, thanks to his success in the first trial. The queen wanted them healthy in case she needed to use them as threats again. Jisoo, the biologist, pulled him aside during one of his visits. I found something, she whispered. Something big. She led him to a corner of the holding area where no guards were watching. From under her mattress, she pulled out a tablet she had stolen from a careless Valoran. I have been studying our medical files, she said. The Valorans took samples from all of us when we arrived. Blood, tissue, everything. And Jisoo's eyes were wide with excitement and fear. Our DNA has markers that should not exist, patterns that do not match anything on Earth. But they match something here. What do you mean? I mean that humans did not evolve on Earth, Jisoo said. At least not completely. Someone engineered us. Someone mixed human genetics with something else. Something alien. Taehyun felt a chill run down his spine. Valoran genetics? I cannot be sure. I need access to their databases to compare. But the patterns are too similar to be a coincidence. Taehyun thought about the prophecy the queen had mentioned, the blood of the forgotten world, the children of exile. What if it was not just mystical nonsense? What if it was based on something real? Keep looking, he told Jisoo, but be careful. If the wrong people find out what you are doing, we could all be in danger. He did not know how right he was. Prince Daewon had been watching Taehyun very closely. The human's success in the first trial had surprised him. His growing relationship with Yuna concerned him, and the strange respect that was spreading through the court terrified him. Daewon had plans. He had spent decades positioning himself to marry Yuna and claim the throne when Queen Sora died. This filthy human was ruining everything. He gathered his allies in a secret meeting. 3 noble houses who owed him favors. 2 generals who wanted power. 1 priest who believed the prophecy was a lie. The human must not complete the trials, Daewon said, and he must not be seen as a martyr. His death must look like an accident. The combat trial is coming, one of the generals said. We can arrange for a mishap. Daewon smiled. Good. Make sure the champion knows what to do. I want the human broken before he dies. I want everyone to see how weak his kind truly is. While Daewon plotted murder, Yuna sat alone in her chambers and thought about the things Taehyun had told her. About rain, about family, about living fully instead of just living long. She had never met anyone like him. He was weak by Valoran standards, small, fragile. His lifespan was a joke, but there was something about him that made her feel things she had never felt before. He made her laugh. When was the last time she had laughed? She could not remember. 50 years ago? 100? Her life was an endless series of duties and appearances and cold, empty days. But when she talked to Taehyun, the emptiness went away. When he told his stories, she could almost feel the rain on her face. When he looked at her, he saw something no one else seemed to see. He saw a person. Not a princess, not a political prize, just a person. Yuna looked at herself in the mirror. Her face was perfect, as always. Cold and beautiful and untouchable, as always. But tonight, for just a moment, she smiled. It felt strange. It felt unfamiliar. It felt wonderful. She did not know that dark clouds were gathering around the man who had made her smile. She did not know that Daewon was planning his death. She did not know that everything was about to change. But she would find out soon enough. And when she did, she would have to make a choice. Duty or desire, tradition or trust. The Ice Princess was beginning to melt, and nothing in the Empire would ever be the same. The arena was ancient. It had stood for 5,000 years, carved from a single piece of white stone that seemed to glow under the purple sky. 50,000 Valorans filled the seats, their voices rising and falling like the sound of the ocean. Taehyun stood at the entrance to the fighting pit. He wore simple training clothes. His hands were wrapped in cloth. His feet were bare. They had not given him any armor. They had not given him any weapons except a short blade, barely longer than his forearm. Across the pit stood his opponent. The champion was called Hyukjin, though that was not his birth name. He had earned it through blood. It meant the one who breaks. Hyukjin was massive even by Valoran standards. His muscles seemed to be carved from stone. His face was covered in scars from 100 victories. He had never lost a match. He had killed 37 opponents in this very arena. The crowd roared for their champion. They chanted his name. They threw flowers at his feet. They looked at Taehyun with pity and contempt. This would not be a fight. This would be an execution. Prince Daewon sat in the royal box, next to Queen Sora and Princess Yuna. He was smiling. He had spoken to Hyukjin the night before. The champion knew what to do. Break the human slowly. Make him suffer. Make him scream. Then end it. Yuna sat stiff and silent in her seat. Her hands gripped the armrest so hard that her knuckles turned white. She wanted to look away, but she could not. She had to watch. She had to see what happened to the man who had made her smile. A horn sounded. The fight began. Hyukjin did not rush forward. He walked slowly, casually, as if he had all the time in the world. His eyes never left Taehyun's face. "I am going to hurt you," he said. His voice was deep and cold. "I am going to break every bone in your body. I am going to make you beg for death. And then, when you have nothing left, I am going to give it to you." Taehyun shifted his weight slightly. His body was relaxed but ready. His eyes tracked every movement of his opponent. "You talk too much," he said. Hyukjin's face twisted with anger. He lunged forward, his fist flying toward Taehyun's head with enough force to shatter stone. Taehyun was not there. He moved at the last possible moment, stepping to the side and letting the punch pass inches from his face. His hand darted out and slapped the inside of Hyukjin's elbow. The champion's arm bent the wrong way and he stumbled forward, off balance. The crowd gasped. What had just happened? Hyuk Jin recovered quickly. He spun around and attacked again, this time with a series of rapid strikes. Left, right, left. Each punch could have killed a normal Valoran. Each punch found only empty air. Taehyun was everywhere and nowhere. He ducked, he weaved. He stepped back and stepped forward and moved in patterns that seemed almost random but were anything but. He had learned this in the military back on Earth. Not how to be stronger than his opponent, how to be smarter. Stand still, Hyuk Jin roared. Make me, Taehyun replied. Hyuk Jin charged with his full strength. This time, Taehyun did not dodge. He met the charge head-on, dropping low and driving his shoulder into the champion's midsection. The impact sent pain shooting through his body, but he pushed through it. His legs drove forward, his arms wrapped around Hyuk Jin's waist. For one impossible moment, the massive Valoran was lifted off his feet. Then Taehyun slammed him into the ground. The arena went silent. No one could believe what they had just seen. A human, a weak and primitive human, had just thrown the greatest champion in the Empire. Hyuk Jin rose to his feet, his eyes burning with fury. Blood dripped from a cut on his forehead. His pride was wounded, and that was far worse than any physical injury. Enough game, he snarled. Now you die. The fight changed after that. Hyuk Jin stopped holding back. He attacked with everything he had, and Taehyun could not dodge forever. A punch caught him in the ribs. He heard something crack. A kick sent him flying across the pit. He hit the wall hard enough to leave a dent in the stone. The crowd cheered. This was more like it. This was the slaughter they had come to see. Taehyun pushed himself to his feet. His ribs were broken, at least two of them. His left eye was swelling shut. Blood filled his mouth, and he spat it onto the white stone. In the royal box, Yuna leaned forward. Her face was pale. Her lips moved silently, forming words that no one could hear. Get up. Please get up. Hyuk Jin walked toward Taehyun slowly, savoring the moment. This is the truth of your kind, he said. Weak, fragile, pathetic. You should never have come here. You should never have dared to stand among us. Taehyun raised his head. His one good eye met Hyuk Jin's gaze without fear. You still talk too much, he said. Then he attacked, not with strength, not with speed, with cunning. He threw a handful of sand into Hyuk Jin's eyes. The champion stumbled backward, blinded for just a moment. In that moment, Taehyun moved. His short blade found the back of Hyuk Jin's knee, cutting deep into the joint. The champion roared in pain and dropped to one leg. Taehyun did not stop. He climbed onto Hyuk Jin's back, his arms wrapping around the massive neck, his legs locked around the torso. He squeezed with everything he had left. Hyuk Jin thrashed and fought. He slammed backward into the wall, crushing Taehyun between his body and the stone. Ribs broke. Blood sprayed from Taehyun's mouth. The pain was beyond anything he had ever known. But he did not let go. Humans are not the strongest. They are not the fastest. They are not the biggest. But they have one gift that no other species in the galaxy can match. They do not quit. Hyuk Jin's movements grew slower. His struggles grew weaker. The lack of blood to his brain was taking its toll. His hands clawed at Taehyun's arms, but the grip only tightened. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the champion fell. Taehyun released his hold and collapsed beside his fallen opponent. He could barely move. Every breath was agony. But he was alive, and Hyuk Jin was unconscious. The arena was completely silent. 50,000 Valorans sat frozen in their seats, unable to process what they had just witnessed. Then slowly one voice began to cheer, then another, and another. Soon the entire arena was on its feet, screaming and chanting, not for their champion, for the human who had defeated him. In the royal box, Prince Daewon sat frozen. His face was white with shock and fury. This was impossible. This could not be happening. Beside him, Princess Yuna rose from her seat. Her eyes were fixed on the broken figure lying in the pit. He was bloody and battered, and barely conscious, and she had never seen anything more beautiful in her entire life. She descended from the royal box, ignoring the guards who tried to stop her. She walked across the arena floor, her white robes trailing in the dust and blood. She knelt beside Taehyun and gently lifted his head into her lap. "You foolish human," she whispered. "You almost died." Taehyun looked up at her with his one good eye. Despite everything, he managed a weak smile. Had to make it interesting, he said. Then he passed out. But before the darkness took him, he saw something that made all the pain worthwhile. He saw Princess Yuna, the ice princess who never showed emotion, crying. She was crying for him. Taehyun woke to the sound of soft humming. He opened his eyes slowly, wincing at the bright light. His body felt strange, heavy but not painful. The medical machines around his bed beeped and whirred, pumping healing agents into his bloodstream. Princess Yuna sat beside him, her hand resting gently on his. She was reading from a tablet, but she stopped when she saw him stirring. "You have been asleep for 5 days," she said. "The doctors were not sure you would wake up. I told them they did not understand humans." Taehyun tried to laugh, but it came out as a cough. "How bad?" "7 broken ribs, a fractured skull, internal bleeding, damage to your spine that would have paralyzed a Valoran permanently." She paused. "The doctors say you should have died. They cannot explain how you survived." "Stubborn," Taehyun said. "Remember?" A small smile crossed Yuna's face. "Yes, I remember." She visited him every day after that. At first she came during the quiet hours when no one would see her. But as Taehyun recovered, she grew bolder. She came in the morning. She came in the evening. Sometimes she stayed through the night, sleeping in the chair beside his bed. The servants noticed. The guards noticed. The court began to whisper. "You should be more careful," Taehyun said one night. "People are talking." "Let them talk," Yuna said. "I am tired of caring what others think. I have spent 200 years being the perfect princess, cold, distant, untouchable. I am tired of it." She looked at him with eyes that held something new, something warm. "You taught me that," she continued. "You taught me that life is too short to waste on pretending. Even if my life is much longer than yours." Taehyun reached up and touched her face. Her skin was cool and smooth, like polished marble, but beneath it he could feel her warmth. "What is happening between us?" he asked softly. "I do not know," Yuna admitted. "I have never felt this way before. It frightens me." "It frightens me too." They sat in silence for a long moment, their hands intertwined. Neither of them noticed the shadow that passed by the door. Neither of them saw the servant who watched them, then hurried away to report what she had seen. Prince Daewon received the news with a cold smile. "So the princess has fallen for the animal," he said. "This makes things more complicated, but also more interesting." He turned to Elder Nari, who sat in the corner of his chamber. She was ancient even by Valoran standards. Her face lined with wrinkles that told stories of centuries past. She had served 7 queens and outlived them all. "You have always been loyal to me," Daewon said. "I need to know that loyalty holds." Elder Nari's expression did not change. "I serve the Empire, my prince. I always have." "Then you will support my plan. The human must die before the final trial. It must look like an accident, or perhaps an assassination by one of our enemies. Either way, the prophecy ends with him." Nari was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "I understand, my prince. I will do what must be done." Daewon smiled. He had no idea that Elder Nari was playing a much deeper game. That same night, Nari walked through the empty halls of the palace. She moved quietly, avoiding the guards and servants who patrolled the corridors. She had learned every secret passage in this place over the centuries. She knew every hidden door, every forgotten chamber. She found Taehyun alone. Yuna had finally left to attend to her duties, and the guards had been sent away by Nari's authority. "Who are you?" Taehyun asked, sitting up carefully. His body was still healing. "Someone who knows the truth," Nari said. She sat in the chair that Yuna had occupied moments before. "Someone who has been waiting a very long time for you to arrive." "What truth?" Nari reached into her robe and pulled out a small device. She pressed a button, and a holographic image appeared in the air between them. It showed a planet, blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. "Earth," Taehyun said. "That is my home." "It is where you were raised," Nari corrected. "But it is not where your kind began." She told him everything. 10,000 years ago, the Valoran Empire had been torn apart by civil war. 2 factions had fought for control, each believing their bloodline was the true inheritor of the throne. The war lasted for 300 years. Billions died. In the end, one faction won. But the victors were not satisfied with simply defeating their enemies. They wanted to erase them completely. They hunted down every member of the losing bloodline. Men, women, children. All were killed. All except one group. A small ship carrying the last survivors of the losing bloodline managed to escape. They fled across the galaxy, looking for a place to hide. They found a young planet, primitive and isolated. A planet called Earth. They mixed their genetics with the local primates, Nari explained. They created a new species, one that looked different enough to avoid detection, but still carried the original bloodline within them. Taehyun stared at the hologram. His mind was spinning. You are saying that humans are the descendants of exiled Velerans, Nari finished. The losing side of an ancient war. The bloodline that was supposed to be destroyed forever. But why are you telling me this? If it is true, then the Empire would want us dead. Nari's old eyes met his. Because the winning side was wrong. Their actions were cruel and unjust, and their bloodline is now paying the price. She explained the curse. Not a magical curse, but a genetic one. By eliminating the other bloodline, the victors had removed the diversity that kept their species healthy. Over the centuries, their genetics had grown weak. Their children were born with defects. Their lifespans grew shorter. They were slowly dying out. The prophecy is not mystical nonsense, Nari said. It is a scientific fact. Human DNA carries the genetic markers that can save our species. Your blood can cure us. Taehyun was quiet for a long time. Then he asked the question that burned in his mind. Why are you really telling me this? Nari smiled. It was a sad smile, full of old pain. Because my great-grandmother was on that ship, she said, the one that fled to Earth. She was captured before they could escape. She was forced to watch as her family flew away without her. She never saw them again. She reached out and touched Taehyun's hand. Her fingers were cold and thin. You are not just a compatible match, Kang Taehyun. You are family. You are the return of those who were lost, and I have been waiting 10,000 years to welcome you home. Before Taehyun could respond, alarms began to sound throughout the palace. Nari's face went pale. It has begun. Day one is moving faster than I expected. What has begun? The coup. Nari stood quickly, her old bones creaking. He is going to kill the queen tonight and blame it on you. You must run. You must find Princess Yuna and protect her. I will not run, Taehyun said. He pushed himself out of the bed, ignoring the pain that shot through his body. Tell me where they took Jisoo. Tell me where the other humans are. Nari gave him the information. Then she pressed something cold and hard into his hand. A blade, ancient and beautiful and deadly. This belonged to my great-grandmother, she said. It has been waiting for this moment. For you. Taehyun gripped the blade and ran. The sounds of fighting echoed through the palace. Screams and explosions filled the air. The Empire was tearing itself apart. And somewhere in the chaos, Princess Yuna was in danger. He had to find her. He had to save her. Or he would die trying. The palace burned. Smoke poured from broken windows. Bodies lay scattered in the hallways, both guards and rebels fallen together. The Festival of Stars had become a festival of blood. Taehyun moved through the chaos like a ghost. He had learned to navigate this palace during his months of captivity, memorizing every corridor and stairway. Now that knowledge saved his life again and again as he dodged patrols of Day One soldiers. He found Jisoo first. She was being held in a storage room near the servant quarters, along with a dozen other humans. 2 guards stood outside the door, distracted by the sounds of battle echoing through the palace. Taehyun did not hesitate. He moved fast and silent, taking down the first guard before he even knew what was happening. The second guard turned, but too late. The ancient blade in Taehyun's hand found its mark. He kicked open the door. The humans inside cowered for a moment, expecting enemies. Then they saw his face. Taehyun! Jisoo rushed forward and hugged him. We thought you were dead. We heard explosions and screaming and... No time, Taehyun said. I need your help. The princess is in danger. Jisoo pulled back and looked at him with knowing eyes. You care about her. Really care about her. Yes, Taehyun admitted. I do. Jisoo smiled despite the fear on her face. Then let us go save her. What do you need? Taehyun quickly organized the humans. Most of them were scared, but a few were ready to fight. Old man Chul had been a soldier in his youth. Young Mina had learned martial arts since childhood. A man named Dong-soo was a former police officer. The princess is being held in the throne room, Taehyun said. Daewon wants witnesses when he declares himself the new ruler. We need to get there before he does something permanent. How do you know where she is? Chul asked. Taehyun held up a small device, a communicator he had taken from one of the fallen guards. I heard them talking. They took the queen and the princess both. The queen was wounded in the initial attack. Jisoo took charge of the non-fighters, leading them to a safe location that Elder Nari had marked on a map. The fighters followed Taehyun deeper into the palace. They encountered resistance twice. The first time, they ambushed a patrol of 6 guards. The humans fought with a ferocity that shocked the Valorans. They had no powers. They had no technology. They had only desperation and courage. The second time, they ran directly into a unit of Daewon's elite soldiers. 20 warriors in full armor, blocking the corridor to the throne room. Go around, Taehyun said. Find another way. I will hold them here. That is suicide, Dong-soo protested. No, Taehyun said. It is faith. Faith that I will find a way. Faith that you will reach the throne room. Faith that together we can do the impossible. He did not wait for them to argue. He walked forward, his blade raised, and stood before the 20 soldiers alone. The lead soldier laughed. One human? Against all of us? You are either brave or stupid. Both, Taehyun said. It runs in my species. He attacked. The fight was not fair. It was never meant to be. Taehyun was one man against 20 trained warriors. He was wounded, exhausted, and outmatched in every way. But he did not fight to win. He fought to delay. He fought to draw attention. He fought to give his people time. He took down 3 soldiers before they overwhelmed him. They beat him to the ground. They broke his arm. They cracked his skull. But every second he held their attention was a second the others had to find another path. When the soldiers finally dragged his bloody body away, 12 of them remained. 12 out of 20. Taehyun smiled through broken teeth. Not bad for one human. They brought him to the throne room and threw him on the floor before Prince Daewon. The prince sat on Queen Sora's throne, his face twisted with triumphant rage. Behind him, the queen lay unconscious on the floor, blood pooling beneath her. Princess Yuna knelt beside her mother, her hands bound behind her back. Her face was bruised, but her eyes burned with fury. Taehyun, she cried when she saw him. The human pest, Daewon said. You just refuse to die, do you not? I almost admire your persistence. Almost. Taehyun pushed himself up to his knees. His entire body screamed in protest. Let her go. Let them both go. This is between us. Daewon laughed. Between us? You are nothing. You are a primitive animal from a forgotten world. You are only here because a crazy prophecy made my aunt think your blood had value. He stood from the throne and walked toward Yuna. He grabbed her hair and yanked her head back, exposing her throat. But prophecies are lies, he continued, and bloodlines can be ended. He pressed a blade to Yuna's throat. Humans are weak, Daewon said, looking directly at Taehyun. Your kind should have stayed forgotten in your tiny corner of the galaxy. You should never have dared to reach for the stars. Taehyun met his gaze. Despite the pain, despite the fear, despite everything, he smiled. You still do not understand, do you? He said. You see weakness. You see fragility. You see a species that lives for less than 100 years. He stood. It should have been impossible. His body was broken. His arm hung useless at his side. Blood dripped from a dozen wounds, but he stood. We are not weak, Taehyun said. We are the species that crawled out of caves and reached for the sun. We are the species that crossed oceans in wooden boats because we wanted to know what was on the other side. We are the species that looked at the stars and said, we will go there someday. He took a step forward. The guards moved to stop him, but something in his eyes made them hesitate. You have lived for centuries, Taehyun continued. You have technology that seems like magic. You have conquered worlds and built empires, but you have forgotten something important. Another step, another. You have forgotten what it means to fight for something you believe in. You have forgotten what it means to stand against impossible odds and refuse to fall. You have forgotten what it means to be willing to die for someone you love. He was standing directly in front of Day One now. The prince's blade was still at Yuna's throat, but his hand was trembling. We never forgot, Taehyun said softly. That is what makes us dangerous. That is what makes us human. He moved. His broken arm should have made it impossible. His wounds should have slowed him down. Everything about the situation said he could not succeed. But humans do impossible things every day. They survive when they should die. They win when they should lose. They keep going when every logical part of their brain says to stop. Tae-hyun's good hand shot forward and knocked the blade away from Yuna's throat. In the same motion, he headbutted Daewon directly in the face. The prince stumbled backward, blood spraying from his shattered nose. The guards rushed forward, but they were too late. The doors of the throne room burst open, and Dong-su led the other humans inside. Behind them came loyalist Valoran soldiers who had finally rallied to defend their queen. The fighting was brutal but brief. Daewon's forces were caught by surprise and outnumbered. One by one, they fell or surrendered. Tae-hyun cut Yuna's bonds with the ancient blade. She threw her arms around him, not caring about the blood or the dirt or the watching eyes. "You impossible human," she whispered. "How are you still alive?" "I had a reason to live," he said, holding her tight with his one good arm. "I had you." She pulled back and looked at him with tears in her silver eyes. Then she kissed him. It was not a gentle kiss. It was not careful or proper or appropriate for a princess. It was desperate and fierce and full of everything they had been afraid to say. When they finally broke apart, the entire throne room was watching in a stunned silence. Princess Yuna, the ice princess who never showed emotion, had just kissed a human in front of the entire court. "Well," Daewon coughed from where he lay on the floor, surrounded by guards. "I suppose the prophecy was real after all." No one paid him any attention. He had already lost. He had lost the moment he underestimated a species that had never learned how to quit. 1 month had passed since the night of blood and fire. The palace had been rebuilt. The dead had been buried. The traitors had faced justice. Prince Daewon now rotted in a prison cell deep beneath the city, forgotten by all who once feared him. Queen Sora had survived her wounds, though she walked with a cane now. She stood at the window of her private chamber, watching the sun rise over the capital city. Beside her stood Elder Nari, as ancient and steady as the mountains. "I was wrong about him," the queen said softly. "When I chose the human, I thought only of the prophecy, only of the bloodline. I did not consider that he might actually be worthy." Nari smiled. "He is more than worthy. He is what this empire needs. Not just his blood, his spirit, his courage, his refusal to accept the impossible." The queen turned to face her old advisor. "You knew. All along you knew what he was." "I suspected," Nari admitted. "The old records spoke of the exiles. They spoke of the forgotten bloodline that fled to the stars. I always believed they would return someday. I just did not know when." "And now," Nari's smile widened, "now everything changes. Now we become what we were always meant to be." The final trial took place at noon. The Great Hall was filled with every noble house in the empire. Thousands of Valorans stood shoulder to shoulder, their silver eyes fixed on the empty stage at the center of the room. Tae-hyun stood behind the curtain, dressed in robes of deep blue trimmed with gold. His arm had healed, thanks to Valoran medicine. His scars remained, but Yuna had said she found them beautiful. Evidence of survival, she called them. Jisoo stood beside him, adjusting his collar with trembling fingers. "Are you nervous?" she asked. "Terrified," Tae-hyun admitted. "I have to give a speech in front of the entire empire. I would rather fight 20 soldiers again." Jisoo laughed. "You will be fine. You always are." "How are the others?" "Good. Better than good, actually." Jisoo smiled proudly. "The queen granted us all protected status. We are no longer captives or curiosities. We are guests of the empire. Some of us have already started working with Valoran scientists, sharing our knowledge. And the ship to Earth? Being prepared as we speak. First contact will happen in 6 months. The queen wants to do it properly, peacefully." Jisoo paused. "Tae-hyun, I have to ask, are you happy?" Really happy. He thought about it for a long moment. 3 months ago, he had been an engineer on a small research station orbiting Mars. He had a simple life, a normal life. Now he was about to marry an alien princess and change the course of two civilizations. Yes, he said finally. I am happy. I never expected any of this. But yes, I am happy. Jisoo hugged him tightly. Then go out there and make us proud. The curtain opened and Tae-hyun walked onto the stage. The hall fell silent. Every eye turned to him. He could feel the weight of their attention, the judgment in their gazes. Many still doubted. Many still believed humans were lesser beings. He was about to change their minds. My name is Kang Tae-hyun, he began, his voice clear and strong. I am a human. 3 months ago, that word meant nothing to you. It was a label for primitives, for animals, for creatures not worth your attention. He paused, letting the words sink in. I am here to tell you a different story, the true story, the story of who we really are. He spoke for an hour. He told them about Earth, about its blue oceans and green forests, about its diverse cultures and ancient histories. He told them about human achievements, the pyramids, the Great Wall, the moon landing, the ships that even now were reaching for the stars. He told them about human spirit, about the soldiers who charged into battle knowing they would die, about the doctors who worked until they collapsed to save one more life, about the mothers who gave everything for their children, about the dreamers who looked at the sky and refused to accept limits. We are not strong like you, Tae-hyun said. We cannot lift boulders with our hands. We cannot run for days without rest. We cannot live for centuries. He let the words hang in the air. But we have something else, something you have forgotten. We have hunger. We have drive. We have an endless need to push beyond our limits. We never stop reaching. We never stop growing. We never, ever stop fighting. He stepped forward, his eyes sweeping across the crowd. Your ancestors exiled us 10,000 years ago. They threw us away like garbage, hoping we would die in the cold emptiness between stars. But we did not die. We survived. We adapted. We built a civilization from nothing. His voice rose, filling every corner of the great hall. And now we are back, not as conquerors, not as enemies, as partners, as equals, as the family that was stolen from you long ago. He raised his hand, and the great doors at the back of the hall opened. Princess Yuna walked through them, dressed in white and silver, beautiful as a winter moon. She crossed the hall with grace and dignity, ascending the stage to stand beside Tae-hyun. I love this woman, Tae-hyun said simply, not because of any prophecy, not because of politics, not because I was told to. I love her because she is kind beneath her coldness, because she is strong beneath her silence, because she looked at me and saw a person, not a primitive. He took Yuna's hand in his. I choose her, today, tomorrow, forever. Yuna's eyes glistened with tears she no longer tried to hide. And I choose you, she said, her voice clear for all to hear. Not because my mother commanded it, not because of ancient prophecies. I choose you because you taught me how to feel again. You taught me that life is not about duty, it is about love. She turned to face the crowd. This human saved my life. He saved my mother's life. He saved this empire from chaos and destruction. If that does not prove his worth, then nothing ever will. Queen Sora rose from her throne. She walked slowly to the stage, leaning on her cane, but standing tall. She looked at Tae-hyun and Yuna for a long moment, then turned to address her people. The prophecy spoke of the blood of the forgotten world restoring what was lost, she said. I believed it meant genetics. I believed it meant science. But I was wrong. She gestured to Tae-hyun. What was lost was not DNA. What was lost was spirit, courage, the willingness to fight against impossible odds, the refusal to accept defeat. Our empire grew cold and empty over the centuries. We forgot how to truly live. She smiled, and for the first time it was a warm smile. The humans have reminded us. This man has reminded us. And that is worth more than any bloodline. She raised her hand and the entire hall bowed. By my authority as Queen of the Velaran Empire, I declare Kang Tae-hyun worthy of the royal bloodline. He will wed my daughter tomorrow at dawn. And from this day forward, humans are to be treated as allies and equals. Anyone who harms them will face my personal justice." The hall erupted in cheers. Not everyone was happy. Some faces showed doubt and resentment, but they were a minority now. The tide had turned. After the ceremony, after the celebrations, after the endless handshakes and congratulations, Tae-hyun finally found a moment of peace. He stood on the observation deck looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, in the darkness between galaxies, a small blue planet waited for him. Yuna joined him, sliding her hand into his. "Tomorrow we will be married," she said, "and then everything changes." "Everything has already changed," Tae-hyun said. "For both of us." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "Are you scared?" "A little. The future is unknown. Earth will need time to accept all of this. The Empire will need time to accept us. There will be challenges. There will be enemies. There will be days when we wonder if we made the right choice." He turned and lifted her chin so she was looking into his eyes. "But I am not worried, because I have you, and together there is nothing we cannot face." Yuna smiled. It was still rare, but each one was more beautiful than the last. "I love you, Kang Tae-hyun." "I love you too, princess." She laughed softly. "You know, after tomorrow, you will have to call me by my name." "I know," he said, "but I like seeing you blush when I call you princess." She hit his arm playfully, then pulled him into a kiss. Above them, the stars blazed with infinite light. Somewhere among those stars, Earth waited. Humanity waited. A new chapter in the history of two civilizations was about to begin. And at the center of it all stood a human who had refused to quit, and a princess who had learned to love. The universe would never be the same.